components to a pay scale. One is the grade, and the other is the step. And a grade is the ranking of a position, or the ordering. Someone here went all blue on me. Is the ordering of positions in order of responsibility. It has absolutely nothing to do with the incumbents in those positions, but you stack positions from the least responsible entry-level position to the most responsible position. And the proposed pay scale has 45 grades. So your entry-level employee would be at a grade 1, and your county manager would be at a grade 45. And it's equal percentages between each of the grades. In this case, the proposed grade differential is 4% between each grade. So as you move from grade 1 to grade 2, there's a 4% difference. And I'll show you an example of this scale in just a second. The other component is steps. So along each grade, there are steps. And the steps in this case go from 1 to 14. And again, it is the steps are based on the individual employee. And how they progress in their job. If I'm a service worker today, and I'm a service worker 5 years from now, my grade may be the same, but my step may change depending on what type of salary increases have been approved for my performance in my job. And again, it's equal percentages between each of those steps of 4%. The proposed pay plan is a 4x4, which is, there's no right pay scale. It's a matter of what pay scale is right for each government. But the proposed one is a 4x4. And I wanted to talk about definitions before I talk about process because they get all tied together. So as Dale mentioned, the very first step in the process was the development of the org charts. You know, the transition task force proposed org charts. Y'all adopted those. The mayor modified them and presented them and structured the various departments. And then department heads were named by April 1st. And then department heads were given the opportunity to sort of figure out, we gave them an ideal on paper how you would be organized. And they had the opportunity to work through what's really the best way with these people to organize the departments. And so those department heads were able to make those changes and come up with the organizational chart. And that's really important because it's going to show those reporting relationships between employees, who supervises who has that span of control. And then from that, we developed job descriptions. I think there's 580 or so total job descriptions that have been created. We started with the existing City of Macon and Bibb County job descriptions, particularly on the county side, in departments like the courts, constitutional officers, and then on the city side, fire, where things were already consolidated. We simply revised those and got them all standardized in the same format. And then we provided, where we could, we consolidated job titles. In the city, you had office assistants, office clerks, administrative assistants, and this long list of administrative titles. The county had the same long list. We didn't want to end up with a twice as long list, so we consolidated with the input from HR some of those titles down to a much more manageable, standardized across the organization job title. And then job description. And then we provided all of those through them to the department heads for their review and edit, and the opportunity to say, oh, this person isn't doing that anymore, this is what they're doing, this is what those responsibilities are, as they had a few months to get used to their own operations. And then the next step in the process is assigning the grade to the position. Again, we haven't looked yet at an individual person, we're still looking at the position itself. And you make a grade assignment, one, based on the responsibilities and duties of that position, supervisory responsibilities, ability to impact the organization, independence of decision making. There's a whole list of things, factors that go into grade development. We also looked internally at similarly responsible jobs to make sure that we didn't have somebody who had a very complex, highly technical job in the same grade as somebody whose job was not as technical or didn't have supervisory responsibility, those sorts of things. We also compared externally, and in tab 4 of your notebook are the external comparisons that we did. Every local government in Georgia submits or participates in the salary survey with the Department of Community Affairs, where they self-report the starting and ending salary of every position. we went through that salary survey and selected two different groupings. One was based on consolidated governments and large governments in Georgia, and the other grouping was based on within the same population range as Macon-Bibb, within 30,000 plus or minus, to try and get a sense as where the proposed grade assignments might result. Were we above market or below market? And certainly you'll never find an organization that has 100% of the positions that you have in yours. But we did a random sampling of positions, and the results of that survey or comparison is in your book. And then when we gave the department heads the revised job descriptions, we said, here's the grade assignments, because we wanted to make sure we didn't have just the grade assignments. We wanted to make sure that we didn't have somebody who was supervising someone at a lower grade than the person that they were supervising. Just another set of eyes on that to validate how they're actually functioning. And then once we got that back, then we finalized the grades. The arrow underneath, this is an iterative process, so if somebody retires and you decide not to fill that position and those duties get shifted to somebody else, that causes a change to the job description, which may cause a change to the grade. And then as you change one grade of one position, you need to look and see, does it have an impact somewhere else across the organization? So it's been, as late as 10 a.m. this morning, in just going back through and saying, is this person is the same as that? Is this, this is what we see, do you see the same thing? And then once we had grades tied down, we then looked at the individual employee. And so we had, each employee had a job title which had been assigned a grade, and then we looked at that individual employee, their current salary, and found the step on that grade that was closest to, but not less than, their current salary. So for some people, it may mean we've got 3 employees out of 2,100 whose salaries are beyond the pay scale, which in practice that would generally mean that their salaries are frozen unless something is done or they're promoted or something like that. In other cases, because we put them on the scale where they are closest to but not less than, you've got a handful of folks who have a $20.80 an hour, a $20.80 annual salary increase, because the scale was 1 penny off from their current salary. But it's not less than, it's just a matter of getting everybody on the scale. So that's been the process that we went through.